Okay, so hello. Magandang tanghali na naman sa lahat ng nanonood, no? At sa mga hopefully makapanood nito at magkaroon ng value sa kanila, no? Ngayon ay pag-usapan pa rin natin yung commercial law, mercantile law, o kaya babasahin naman natin ngayon ay yung Republic Act 7394, which is yung Consumer Act of the Philippines. Okay. Basahin natin yung Title 1 niya, General Provisions, Article 1. This act shall be known as the Consumer Act of the Philippines, Section 2, Declaration of Basic Policy. It is the policy of the state to protect the interests of the consumer, promote his general welfare, and to establish standards of conduct for business and industry. Towards this end, the state shall implement measures to achieve the following objectives. So ito yung objective ng Estado, walang gobyerno natin. Kaya nila pinasa tong batas na to. Letter A, protection against hazards of health and safety. Letter B, protection against deceptive, unfair, and unconscionable sales acts and practices. Letter C, provision of information and education to facilitate sound choice and the proper exercise of rights by the consumer. Letter D, provision of adequate rights and means of redress. And letter E, involvement of consumer representatives in the formulation of social and economic policies. Kaya yan ang layunin nitong batas na ito. Article 3, sabi niya, yung construction o yung pagkakaintindi, sabi rito, the best interest of the consumer shall be considered in the interpretation and implementation of the provisions of this act, including its implementing rules and regulations. So, yung batas ay iintindihin o i-interpret para sa best interest ng consumer. Article 4, mag-define naman tayo ng terms. Advertisement means the prepared and through any form of mass medium subsequently applied, disseminated, or circulated advertising matter. Advertising means the business of conceptualizing, presenting, or making available to the public through any form of mass media, fact, data, or information about the attributes, features, quality, or availability of consumer products, services, or credit. Advertising agency or agent means a service, organization, or enterprise creating, conducting, producing, implementing, or giving counsel on promotional campaigns or programs through any medium for and in behalf of any advertiser. Advertiser means the client of the advertising agency or the sponsor of the advertisement on whose account the advertising is prepared, conceptualized, presented, or disseminated. So, ang advertiser, ito yung mga products usually. Kunwari, ako ay Safeguard. Okay, pumunta ako sa isang advertising agent. Okay, ako yung sponsor. Okay, ako yung kliyente ng advertising agency. Agricultural purpose means a purpose related to the production, harvest, processing, manufacture, distribution, storage, transportation, marketing, exhibition, or disposition of agricultural, fishery, or marine products. Okay? So para sa batas na ito, itinuturing na bahagi yung mga fishery or marine products sa agriculture purpose. Amount financed in a consumer credit sale constitutes the cash price plus non-finance charge less the amount of any down payment, whether made in cash or in property traded in, or in a consumer loan, the amount paid to, receivable by, or paid or payable to the buyer or to another person in his behalf. Okay. Banned hazardous substance means any toy or other articles intended for use by children which are hazardous per se or which bear or contain substances harmful to human beings. Siguro ito yung mga toys na usually made in China na may mataas na lead content, or any hazardous substance intended or packaged in a form suitable for use in the household, which the implementing agency by regulation classifies as banned hazardous substance, notwithstanding the existence of cautionary labels to safeguard public health and safety, provided that the implementing agency may, by regulation, exempt from this act articles which by reason of their functional purpose require the inclusion of the hazardous substance involved and which bear appropriate labels giving adequate directions and warning for their safe use. Procedures for the issuance, amendment, or repeal of regulations pursuant to Clause 2 or Paragraph G of this article shall be governed by the rules and regulations promulgated by the Department of Health, provided that if the DOH finds that the distribution for household use of the hazardous substance involved presents an imminent hazard to the public health, it may publish in a newspaper of general circulation a notice of such finding, and such substance shall be deemed to be banned hazardous substance pending the issuance of regulation formally banning the substance. Okay. Batch means a quantity of any drug or device produced during a given cycle of manufacture. Business name, firm name, or style means any name or designation other than the true name of a person, partnership, corporation, or association which is used or signed in connection with his business or in any written or printed receipt, including receipt for tax or business, any written printed contract not verified by a notary public, any written or printed evidence of any agreement or business transaction, any sign or billboard kept conspicuously exhibited in plain view in or at the place of the business announcing a firm name or business name or style. Yun ang business name, firm name, or style. Cash price or delivered price, sabi, in case of trade transaction means the amount of money which would constitute full payment upon delivery of the property or service purchased at the creditor's place of business. In the case of financial transactions, cash price represents the amount received by the debtor upon consummation of the credit transaction, net of finance charges collected at the time the credit is extended, if any. Chain distribution plans or pyramid sales schemes, ito yung mga networking kadalasan, means sales devices whereby a person, upon condition that he makes an investment, is granted by the manufacturer of his representative a right to recruit for profit one or more additional persons who will also be granted such right to recruit upon condition of making similar investments, provided that the profits of the person employing such a plan are derived primarily from the recruitment of other persons into the plan rather than from the sale of consumer products, services, and credit. Provided further that the limitation on the number of participants does not change the nature of the plan. Closing out sale means a consumer sale wherein the seller uses the announcement to create the impression that he is willing to give large discounts or merchandise in order to reduce, dispose, or close out his inventory and business. Ito yung nagbebenta ng pasara na yung negosyo. Yun ang closing out sale. Commerce means the sale, lease, exchange, traffic, or distribution of goods, commodities, production, services, or property, tangible or intangible. Kasi kasama yung services so kahit intangible. Consumer means any natural person who is a purchaser, lessee, recipient, or prospective purchaser, lessor, or recipient of consumer products, services, or credit. Okay. Consumer credit means any credit extended by a creditor to a consumer for the sale or lease of any consumer product or service under which part or all of the price or payment therefore is payable at some future time, whether in full or in installments. Consumer loan means a loan made by the lender to a person which is payable in installments for which a finance charge is or may be imposed. This term includes credit transactions pursuant to an open-end credit plan other than a seller credit card. Consumer products and services means goods, services, and credits, debts, or obligations which are primarily for personal, family, household, or agricultural purposes, which shall include but not limited to food, drugs, cosmetics, and devices. Consumer Product Safety Rule means a consumer product safety standard described in Article 78 or a rule under this chapter declaring a consumer product banned hazardous product. Consumer transaction means, ibig sabihin, a sale, lease, assignment, award, by chance, or other disposition of consumer products, including chattels that are intended to be affixed to land, or of services or of any right, title, or interest therein, except securities as defined in the Securities Act, and contracts of insurance under the Insurance Code, okay, or a grant of provision of credit to a consumer for purposes that are primarily personal, family, household, or agricultural, or a solicitation or promotion by a supplier with respect to a transaction referred to in the clause. Okay, ang ibig sabihin naman daw ng corrosive ay any substance which on contact with living tissue will cause destruction of tissue by chemical reaction. Okay. Cosmetics means articles intended to be rubbed, poured, sprinkled, or sprayed on, introduced into, or otherwise applied to the human body or any part thereof for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering the appearance, and article intended for use as a component of any such article except that such term shall not include soap. So, ang soap ay hindi isinali as cosmetics dito sa batas, dito sa act na ito, no? Counterfeit product means any consumer product which or the container or labeling of which without authorization bears the trademark, trade name, or other identifying mark, imprint, or device or any likeness thereof of a consumer product manufacturer, processor, packer, distributor other than the person or persons who in fact manufactured, processed, packed, or distributed such product and which thereby falsely purports or is represented to be the product of or to have been packed or distributed by such consumer product manufacturer, processor, packer, or distributor. Ito yung mga, kunwari, Havaiana, ang letter S. So, yung mga chinelas nila, Havaiana. Ayan, counterfeit product. Japix na product. Okay. Credit card means any card, plate, coupon book, or other credit device existing for the purpose of obtaining money, property, labor, or services on credit. Credit sale means a sale of products, services, or an interest in land to a person on credit, where a debt is payable in installments or a finance charge is imposed and includes any agreement in the form of a bailment of products or lease of products or real property if the bailee or lessee pays or agrees to pay compensation for use a sum substantially equivalent to or in excess to the aggregate value of the products or real property involved, and it is agreed that the bailies or lessee will or for no other or a nominal consideration has the option to become the owner of the products or real property upon full compliance with the terms of the agreement. Okay, medyo naguluhan ako doon. Credit sale ay ang pagbebenta ng produkto o serbisyo o meron kang interest in land, okay, to a person on credit. Where a debt, okay, yung utang is payable in installments, okay, sabi niya, and includes any agreement in the form of a bailment of products Okay, bailment of products, ibig sabihin parang ilalagay mo muna sa possession niya yung product or lease. Papa-lease mo rin yung products or real property. Kapag sumang-ayon yung bailee o yung lessee, sumang-ayon siya at binayaran niya yun. Okay. So, yun ang ibig sabihin ng credit sale. Yun yung term of agreement. Parang sale on installment, ganyan. Okay, credit transaction means a transaction between a natural person and the creditor in which real or personal property, services, or money acquired on credit and the person's obligation is payable in installment. Creditor means any person engaged in the business of extending credit and shall include any person who, as a regular business practice, makes loans, okay, nagpapautang ito, or sells or rents property or services on a time, credit, or installment basis, either as principal or as agent who requires, as an incident to the extension of credit, the payment of a finance charge. Ang daming terms na kailangan i-define dito. Okay. Default or delinquency charge means with respect to consumer credit transaction, the penalty charge payable by the consumer debtor, okay, yung may utang, for failure to pay an amount or installment in full on the date the same becomes due and demandable, or on or before the period specified for the purpose in the consumer credit sale documents. Ito yung may hulugan kang binabayaran pero hindi ka nakahulog sa tamang oras. Ganun, no? Yun yung default or delinquency charge. So, merong penalty charge. May karagdagan kang babayaran. Device means an instrument, apparatus, implement, machine, contrivance, implant, in vitro reagent, or other similar or related article, including any component, part, or accessory which is recognized in the official United States Pharmacopoeia National Formulary or any supplement to them, intended for use in the diagnosis of disease or other condition or in the cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease in man or other animals, intended to affect the structure or any function of the body of man or other animals, and which does not achieve any of its principal intended purposes through chemical reaction within or on the body of a man or other animals, and which is not dependent upon being metabolized for the achievement of any of its principal intended purposes. Okay. Hindi siya kailangan ng mga chemical action para magkaroon ng epekto sa katawan natin o ng any sort of metabolism. Yun ang tinuturing nilang device. Ano naman ang ibig sabihin ng distributor? Distributor means any person to whom a consumer product is delivered or sold for purposes of distribution in commerce, except that such term does not include a manufacturer or retailer of such product. Drugs mean articles recognized in the current official United States Pharmacopoeia National Formulary, official Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia of the United States, official National Drug Formulary, or any supplement to any of them, and articles intended for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease in man or other animals, and articles maliban sa pagkain other than food, intended to affect the structure or any function of the body of man or animals, and articles intended for use as a component of any articles specified in clauses 1, 2, or 3 but do not include devices or their components, parts, or accessories. The term drug, when used in this act, shall include herbal or traditional drug. They are defined as articles from indigenous plant or animal origin used in folk medicine, which are, kasama rin itong mga herbal na ito, recognized in the Philippine National Formulary, intended for use in the treatment or cure, mitigation of disease symptoms, injury or bodily defect for use in man, other than food, intended to affect the structure of any function of the body of man, put into finishes ready-to-use form by means of formulation, dosage, or dosage directions, and intended for use as a component of any of the articles specified in clauses 1, 2, 3, 4 of this paragraph. Okay. So, yun ang lahat na nabanggit. Yun ay drugs. Yun ang definition ng drugs according to this law. Expiry or expiration date means the date stated on the label of food, drug, cosmetic device, or hazardous substance after which they are not expected to retain their claimed safety, efficacy, and quality or potency, and after which it is no longer permissible to sell them. Hindi na pwede magbenta kapag mag-expire na. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo sa mga cake shop, di ba, yung malapit na mag-expire, sinesale nila yon. Mas mura mong mabibili. Busin mo nga lang agad. Extremely flammable means any substance which has a flash point at or below -6 and 6/10 degrees centigrade as determined by the Tagliabue open cub tester, and term combustible shall apply to any substance which has a flash point of above 26 and 6/10 degrees 2 and including 65 and 5/10 degrees centigrade as determined by the Tagliabue open cub tester, provided that the flammability or combustibility of solids and of the contents of self-pressurized containers shall be determined through methods found by the implementing agency to be generally applicable to such materials or containers, respectively, and established by regulations issued by it. Okay. Flammable siguro yun yung mga, siyempre, tangke ng gasulo, di ba? Yung keep distance, flammable, di ba? May mga ganon. So siguro, as we go along na magbasa rito, baka nire-require sila na maglagay ng mga ganong warning. Okay, no smoking within 50 feet. Yan, mga ganyan para sa safety. Kasi either yung product is flammable or highly combustible, madaling sumabog o madaling magliyab. Yan. Food means any substance, whether processed, semi-processed, or raw, intended for human consumption, and includes chewing gum, drinks, and beverages, and any substance which has been used as an ingredient or a component in the manufacture, preparation, or treatment of food. Food additive means any substance the intended use of which results or may reasonably be expected to result directly or indirectly in its becoming a component or otherwise affecting the characteristics of any food, including any substance intended for use in producing, manufacturing, packing. Ayan, alam naman na natin yan, food additive. Generic name is the identification of drugs and medicines by their scientifically and internationally recognized active ingredients or by their official generic name as determined by the Bureau of Food and Drugs or the Department of Health. Guarantee means an expressed or implied assurance of the quality of the consumer products and services offered for the sale or length of satisfactory use. Okay, magamit mo siya sa purpose, sa intended purpose at sa intended na tagal na masatisfy ka dun sa quality niya. Hazardous substance means any substance or mixture of substance which is toxic, corrosive, irritant, a strong sensitizer, flammable, or combustible, or generates pressure through decomposition, heat, or other means. And hazardous and keep out of reach of children, sabi nga, di ba? Any substance which the department finds to be under the categories enumerated in clause 1, letter I of this paragraph. Ayan, hazardous pa rin daw yun. Yung mga radioactive substance, kasama yan sa hazardous materials. Any toy or articles na which the director may, by regulation, determine the presence of an electrical, mechanical, or thermal hazard. Okay, yung hazardous shall not apply to food. Okay, Pag sinabing hazardous substance, hindi siya mag-a-apply sa food, drugs, cosmetics, and devices, nor to substances intended for use as fuels when stored in containers and used in the heating, cooking, or refrigeration system of a house. Pero yung hazardous materials such shall apply. Yung term na yon shall apply to any article which is not in itself a pesticide but which is a hazardous substance as construed in the preceding paragraph, yung mga nagdaang paragraph, no? Highly toxic means any substance which has any of the following effects. Ito siya, produces death within 4 days to one half or more than one half of a group of 10 or more laboratory white rats, each weighing between 200 and 300 grams. Ito yung mga highly toxic, yung mga mas mabilis ang pagkamatay at pagka sa mga tinest ng scientists, no? Mas mabilis na namamatay, highly toxic sila. Home solicitation sale means consumer sales or leases which are personally solicited by any person or organization by telephone, person-to-person contact, or by written or printed communication other than general advertising. So ito siguro yung mga nagdo-door-to-door, no? Immediate container means the container or package which is immediately after or near the substance but does not include package liners. Imminently hazardous product means a consumer product which presents an unreasonable risk of death, serious illness, or severe personal injury. Irritant means any article not corrosive within the meaning of paragraph T of this article, which on immediate, prolonged, or repeated contact with normal living tissue will induce a local inflammatory reaction. Hindi siya corrosive, pero siya ay inflammatory. Label or labeling means the display of written, printed, or graphic matter on any consumer product dun sa kanyang immediate container, tag, literature, or other materials. Manufacture means any and all operations involved in the production, kasama na dun yung preparation, propagation, processing, formulating, filing, packing, repacking, altering, ornamenting, fishing, or otherwise changing the container, wrapper, at ano paman. Manufacturer means any person who manufactures, assembles, or processes consumer products. Ayan. Mass media refers to any means or methods used to convey advertising messages to the public such as television, radio, kasama na rin dito yung mga leaflets, handbills, cinema, kasama na rin siguro dito ang social media. Materially defective product means a product which, because of the pattern of the defect, the number of defective products distributed in commerce, and the severity of the risk or otherwise, creates a substantial risk of injury to the public. So, ang tawag doon, materially defective product. Dahil sa depekto niya, nagkukos ito ng substantial risk sa publiko. Ano naman ibig sabihin ng mislabeled hazardous substance? Means any hazardous substance intended or packed in a form suitable for use in households, especially by children, the packing or labeling of which is in violation of the special packing regulation issued by the DOH. Diba? Siguro ito yung mga, ito nga, dapat may nakalagay doon na danger or warning or caution, flammable, vapor, harmful, causes burns, pagka-absorb through skin, yan, no? Keep out of reach of children, yan. Nakalagay yan sa packing law ng DOH, no? O yung label law, di ba? Packing regulation, issued by the DOH. New drugs means any drug, the composition of which is such that said drug is not generally recognized among experts qualified by scientific training, etc., etc. Okay, kasali na rin sa new drugs ang mga newly discovered active ingredient o yung mga containing a new fixed combination of drugs, either by molecular or physical combination, intended for new indications, in additional dosage or strength of the dosage form, which meets the conditions as defined under the new drugs. Okay? So, the definition of new drugs covers to the extent applicable new devices. Okay. Dahil pa natin i-define na term. New product means a consumer product which incorporates a design, material or form of energy exchange which has not previously been used substantially in consumer products. Okay? Di pa siya nagamit dati. Yung form niya, no? Okay. And dahil new product siya, lacking pa of adequate information to determine the quality and safety of such product. Meron din namang open-end credit plan, means a consumer credit extended to an account pursuant to a plan under which, number one, the creditor may permit the person to make purchases or obtain loans from time to time directly from the creditor or indirectly by use of the credit card, o kaya naman the person has the privilege of paying the balance, o kaya naman a finance charge may be computed by the creditor from time to time on an outstanding unpaid balance. Yan ang open-end credit plan. Package or packaging means any container or wrapping in which any consumer product is enclosed. Okay? For delivery, no? Kasi hindi daw kasali rito yung shipping containers or wrappings, shipping containers or other wrappings, the wrappers or containers of consumer products sold in small quantities. Hindi sila kasama, no? A person means any individual, partnership, corporation or association, trust, government or governmental subdivision, or any other legal entity. Poisonous substance means any substance capable of destroying life or seriously endangering health, sabi. Price comparison means a direct comparison in any advertisement of a seller's current price for consumer products or services with any other price or statement of value for such property or services expressed in pesos, centavos, fractions, or percentages. Price tag means any device written, printed, affixed, or attached to a consumer product. Doon nakalagay yung retail price niya per unit. Principal display panel means that part of the label that is most likely to be displayed, presented, shown, or examined under normal and customary conditions of display for retail or sale. Private labeler means an owner of a brand or trademark on the label of consumer product other than a manufacturer of the product. Ito naman, radioactive substance means any substance which emits ionizing radiation. So, magkaiba siya kaysa dun sa mga corrosive products na na-define natin, yung mga highly poisonous yan. Pero ang tingin ko, ano pa rin sila, dangerous. Dangerous products. Okay, referral selling means the sale device employed by the sellers wherein the buyer is induced to acquire goods or services by representing that after the acquisition of the goods or services, he will receive a rebate, commission, or other benefit in return for the submission of names of potential customers. Yan, ha? Kumbaga, parang binigyan ka ng discount o binigyan ka ng another pakinabang rebate ni seller para ma-induce ka o maingganyo ka na magbigay ng mga pangalan or contact number na pwede nilang kontakin para i-market yung kanilang product or i-offer yung kanilang product o service. Repair and service fair means any business establishment engaged directly or indirectly in the repair, service, or maintenance of any consumer product. Retailer means a person engaged in the business of selling consumer products directly to consumers. Sale or distribution shall mean an act made by a manufacturer or seller or their respective representative or agent to make available consumer products, services, or credit to the end consumers under a consumer sale transaction. Hindi raw kasali dito yung sampling. Sales promotion means techniques intended for broad consumer participation which contain promises of gain, such as prizes in cash or in kind as reward for the purchase of the product, security, service, or winning in contest, game, tournament, and other similar competitions which involve determination of winners and which utilize mass media or other widespread media information. Seller means a person engaged in the business of selling consumer products directly to consumers. It shall include a supplier or distributor if, number one, the seller is a subsidiary or affiliate of the supplier or distributor. Number 2, the seller interchanges personnel or maintains common or overlapping officers or directors with the supplier or distributor. And number 3, the supplier or distributor provides or exercises supervision, direction, or control over the selling practices of the seller. Service shall mean, with respect to repair and service firms, the services supplied in connection with the contact for construction, maintenance, repair, processing, treatment, or cleaning of goods or fixtures on land, or distribution of goods or transportation of goods. Services means services that are the subject of a consumer transaction, either together with or separate from any kind of personal property, whether tangible, inahawakan, or intangible, hindi inahawakan, no? Special packing means packaging that is designed or constructed to be significantly difficult for children 5 years of age to open or to obtain a toxic or harmful amount of the substance contained therein within a reasonable time and not difficult for normal adults. So, special packaging, di naman kahirapan sa mga normal adults pero mahirap buksan para sa mga bata para kung sakaling hawakan ito ng bata, may reasonable time yung adult na ma-intercept ito. Standard means a set of conditions to be fulfilled to ensure the quality and safety of a product. Strong sensitizer means any substance which will cause on normal living tissue allergy or photodynamic quality o di naman kaya hypersensitivity. Substandard product means a product which fails to comply with an applicable consumer product safety rule. Okay? Supplier means a person other than a consumer who, in the course of his business, solicits, offers, advertises, or promotes the disposition or supply of a consumer product, or who, other than the consumer, engages in, enforces, or otherwise participates in a consumer transaction, whether or not any privity of contract actually exists between that person and the consumer and includes the successor to or assignee of any right or obligation of the supplier. Technical personnel of repair and service enterprise shall mean a machine or technician or any person who works or renders diagnosis or advice in connection with repair, service, and maintenance of the consumer products in a repair and service firm. Ayan. Toxic substance means any substance other than a radioactive substance which can cause injury, illness, or death to a man through ingestion, inhalation, or absorption through any body surface. And lastly, trade name or trademark. Ito na nakakatapos lang natin itong basahin dun sa Intellectual Property Code, no? Means a word or words, name, title, symbol, emblem, sign, or device, or any combination thereof, used as an advertisement, sign, label, poster, or otherwise for the purposes of enabling the public to distinguish the business of the person who owns and uses said trade name or trademark. Ang laging example ko dyan, Jollibee. Diba? So at least nang nabasa natin yung definition ng terms, bukod sa hindi pa naman talaga natin nababasa yung sinasabi dito sa mismong batas na ito, pero nakaka 42 minutes na tayo. In reality, nabigyan na tayo ng konting idea as to why. Diba? Bakit nga pala, nakalagay sa batas yung terms, nakalagay pala sa batas na ilagay yung keep out of reach of children, ganyan. Or for example, sa sigarilyo, nilagay siguro yun under the DOH, anong tawag dito, regulation, no? Na sinabi nila na if you are going to sell cigarettes, kailangan nakalagay yung mga epekto nito. Nakalagay doon sa cover na ang paninigarilyo ay napipigilan ang iyong kakayanan sa pagtatalik. May picture ng baga na itim, merong mga picture na may sakit, causes emphysema, causes cancer to ano. So kapag namili ako ng sigarilyo, hindi ko tinitingnan yung labeling. Pero requirement yon, hindi naman para takutin tayo, kundi that is a requirement of the DOH. Sabihin na natin sa ating mga kalayman, requirement yon ng batas. And there is a reason pala kung bakit merong mga products na mas mahirap buksan kesa sa others, di ba? Okay, puntahan natin chapter 1. Haba-haba ng definition of terms, no? Pero marami naman tayo natutunan. Chapter 1, Consumer Product Quality and Safety. Magsisimula ang Chapter 1 sa Article 5. Okay? Sa dami ng binasa natin, Consumer Act pa rin ito. Chapter 5 pa lang tayo. Declaration of policy, it shall be the duty of the state to develop and provide safety and quality standards for consumer products, including performance or use-oriented standards, codes of practice, and methods of tests. Letter B, to assist the consumer in evaluating the quality, including safety, performance, and comparative utility of consumer products. Letter C, to protect the public against unreasonable risks of injury associated with consumer products. Letter D, to undertake research and quality improvement of products and investigation into causes and prevention of product-related deaths, illness, and injuries. And letter E, to assure the public of the consistency of standardized products. So dahil mayroong batas na ganito, sino ba nag-i-implement nito? I think pinapa-implement nito sa DOTR, hindi ako nagkakamali, Department of Trade, o kaya naman sa mga local governments, subject dito sa batas na ito. Kaya kung napapanood natin sa TV, di ba, may mga pinapasara na nagtitinda ng Chinese beauty products na walang approval ng DOH, no? O kaya nagtitinda ng mga foreign na pagkain without the approval of BFAD. BFAD is under the DOH, hindi ba? Okay, Article 6, Implementing Agencies. The provisions of this article and its implementing rules and regulations shall be enforced by, the Department of Health with respect to food, drugs, cosmetics, devices, and substances. Okay, letter B, the Department of Agriculture with respect to products related to agriculture, and the Department of Trade and Industry with respect to other consumer products not specified above. So tama yung sinabi ko. Ang implementing agencies niya ay hindi ko lang nasabi yung Department of Agriculture. So tatlo ang implementing agencies nito, DOH, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Trade and Industry. DOTI ba ito? Okay. Article 7, Promulgation and Adoption of Consumer Product Standards. The concerned department shall establish consumer product quality and safety standards which shall consist of one or more of the following. Ito yung mga kasama niya. Ito yung mga standards, no? Letter A, requirements to performance, composition, contents, design, construction, finish, packaging of a consumer product. Ayan. Letter B, requirements as to kind, class, grade, dimensions, weights, material. Letter C, requirements as to the methods of sampling, tests, and codes used to check the quality of the product. Letter D, requirements as to precautions in storage, transporting, and packaging. And letter E, requirements that a consumer product be marked with or accompanied by clear and adequate safety warnings or instructions, or requirements respecting the form of warnings or instructions. Okay, sabi. Para daw sa purpose na ito, the concerned department, siguro yung isa sa mga nabanggit natin kanina, shall adopt existing government domestic product quality and safety standards. Provided that in the absence of such standards, the concerned department shall form specialized technical committees composed of equal number of representatives from each of the government, business and consumer sectors to formulate, develop, and purpose consumer product quality and safety standard. Yung technical committee nito shall consult with the private sector which may motu proprio or with their own initiative develop its own quality and safety standards and shall be subject of, mali naman nakasulat, agencies after public hearings have been conducted for that purpose. Okay. Article 8, Publication of Consumer Product Standards. No? The concerned department shall, upon promulgation of the above standards, publish or cause the publication of the same in 2 newspapers. Okay. Dalawa ang requirement dito, 2 new newspapers of general circulation at least once a week for a period of not less than 1 month. It may likewise conduct an information campaign through other means deemed effective to ensure the proper guidance of consumers businesses, industries, and other sectors concerned. Article 9, Effectivity of Rules. Each consumer product standard or safety rule shall specify the date such rule is to take effect, which shall not exceed 90 days from the date promulgated, unless the concerned department funds or for good cause shown that the latter effective date is in the public interest. Okay, blah blah blah. Depende na lang daw kung according sa mga sa mga agencies pwede pang bigyan ng panahon, 'di ba? After 90 days upon promulgation itong batas na to para maka-adjust yung publiko. Sabi rin nito, the department, okay, may by regulation prohibit a manufacturer from stockpiling consumer products. Okay, as to prevent such manufacturer from circumventing the purposes of this paragraph. The term stockpiling means manufacturing or importing a product between the date of promulgation of its consumer product safety rule and its effective date at a rate which is significantly greater than the rate at which such product was produced or imported during a base period as prescribed in the regulation under this product ending before the date of promulgation of consumer product safety rule. Nag-stock ka muna kunwari sigarilyo. Nagkaroon na ng bagong regulation sa sigarilyo, nag-stockpile ka muna. Nang in-import mo sigarilyo, saka mo na lang unti-unting nilalagyan ng kunwari kaakibat na yung mga anong tawag doon, description, yun. Bawal daw yun, no? Diskarte yun maraming ganun Okay, Article 10, Injurious, Dangerous, and Unsafe Products. Whenever the department finds by their own initiative or by petition of a consumer that a consumer product is found to be injurious, unsafe, or dangerous, it shall, after due notice and hearing, make the appropriate order for its recall, prohibition, or seizure from public sale or distribution, provided that in the sound discretion of the department, it may declare a consumer product to be imminently injurious, unsafe, or dangerous, at pwede nilang i-order yung immediate recall, ban or seizure from public sale, or ipagbawal ang distribution, in which case the seller, distributor, manufacturer, or producer thereof shall be afforded a hearing within 48 hours from such order. So pag pinag-utos naman ng implementing agencies na iba ng isang produkto o ipatigil ang distribution, meron namang 48 hours upon the release of that order para pakinggan, dinggin yung side nung seller, distributor, manufacturer o kaya yung producer. No? The ban on the sale and distribution of a consumer product adjudged injurious, okay? Yung napagtanto na injurious, unsafe, or dangerous, okay, shall stay in force until the time that its safety can be assured or measures to ensure its safety have been established. Okay, maganda rin itong batas na ito. Article 11, Amendment and Revocation of Declaration of the Injurious, Unsafe, or Dangerous Character of a Consumer Product. Sabi rito, any interested person may petition the appropriate department to commence a proceeding for the issuance of an amendment or revocation of a consumer product safety rule or an order declaring a consumer product injurious, dangerous, and unsafe. In case the department, upon petition by an interested party or its own initiative, and after due notice and hearing, determines a consumer product to be substandard or materially defective, it shall so notify the manufacturer, distributor, or seller thereof of such finding and order such manufacturer, distributor, or seller to i-order sila ng department to give notice to the public of the defect, give notice to each distributor or retailer of such product, siguro yung mga defects, ganyan, no? At pagbibigyan din daw ang manufacturer, distributor, or seller ng mga remedies to the injured person, okay? Sabi nila, to bring such product into conformity with the requirements of the applicable consumer product standards, okay? To repair the defect, lalo na siguro sa mga kotse, no? Yung mga naalala ko, there was a time na merong ni-recall, di ba? Ipinag-utos na i-recall lahat ng mga Mitsubishi ba yun? Ano ba yung ano na yun? Yung nagmamaneho mag-isa unintended na acceleration, ng sasakyan yun. Okay, to replace the product, pag-uutos daw na i-replace nila yung product, i-replace ng manufacturer, seller, o ng producer yung product. To refund the purchase price, okay, pwedeng remedyo yan. To pay the consumer reasonable damages as may be determined by the department. Okay. Okay. Ganda rin siya. Okay. The manufacturer, the distributor, or seller shall not charge a consumer who avails himself of the remedy as provided above of any expense and cost that may be incurred. Okay. Article 12. Effectivity of amendments and revocation of Consumer Product Safety Rule. Sabi rito, any amendment or revocation of Consumer Product Safety Rule made by the concerned department shall specify the date on which it shall take effect, which shall not exceed 90 days from the date of amendment or revocation. Okay? Unless the concerned department finds for a good cause shown that a later effective date is in public interest. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Article 13, new products. The concerned department shall take measures to make a list of new consumer products and to cause the publication by the respective manufacturers or importers of such products, a list thereof together with the descriptions in a newspaper of general circulation. Kailangan ipakita yung mga product kumbaga ipakilala sa publiko para matukoy din ng publiko, matukoy, masuri, masubukan, may report. Article 14, certification of conformity to consumer product standards. The concerned department shall aim at having consumer product standards established for every consumer product so that consumer products shall be distributed in commerce only after inspection and certification of its quality and safety standards by the department. The manufacturer shall avail of the Philippines Standard Certification Mark with the department, which the department shall grant after determining the product's compliance with the relevant standard in accordance with the implementing rules and regulations. Okay, Article 15. Nako, haba nito. Okay, basahin natin. Article 15, imported products, Any consumer product offered for importation into the customs of the Philippine territory shall be refused admission. Okay? Yung mga importation means bibili tayo ng produkto galing sa ibang bansa, So, it shall be refused daw na tanggapin, hindi pa papasukin ng customs if yung product na yun, number 1, fails to comply with an applicable consumer product quality and safety standard rule. Number 2, is or has been determined to be injurious, unsafe, and dangerous. Number 3, is substandard. Or number 4, has material defect. Okay, ang problema lang, yung customs natin sigurado na susuhulan ng at yung customs and other agencies na susuhulan ng mga Chinese. China kasi yung sikat sa mga substandard product as of this date. So kung mabasa ng anak ko to, baka naman People's Republic of China na tayo, o di naman kaya di ba? Hindi ako Panginoong Jesucristo. Anyway, pero as of this moment, sikat na sikat ang mga defective products ng Chinese. Yun nga lamang, cheap kasi sila. Kaya, okay, samples of consumer products being imported. Okay, so yun yung nabanggit ko. Okay, letter A yun, yung mga hindi ipagbabawal yung mga imported products kapag ayun, mga nabasa ko. Letter B naman, samples of consumer products being imported into the Philippines in quantity necessary for purposes of determining the existence of any of the above causes for non-admission may be obtained by the concerned department or agency without charge from the owner or consignee thereof. The owner or consignee of the imported consumer product under examination, shall be afforded an opportunity to a hearing with respect to the importation of such products into the Philippines. If it appears from examination of such samples or otherwise that an imported consumer product does not conform to the consumer product safety rule, hindi siya alinsunod sa ating safety rule, o kaya naman siya ay injurious, unsafe, and dangerous, The product shall be refused admission unless the owner or the consignee thereof manifests under bond. Hindi naman magbabayad ka ng bond. Hindi pala magbabayad, maglalagay ka ng bond in money ito or 'di ba parang sa korte, bail bond, 'di ba? Papiyansa ka that none of the above ground for non-admission exists or that measures have been taken to cure them before they are sold, distributed, or offered for sale. So pag nasuri daw ito na hindi maayos yung product, it may the appropriate government agency through the customs shall refuse admission. Pero yung the owner shall pay a bond. Okay, merong ang halaga, parang collateral ba? In that sense, bayad ka ng bond para masiguro na hindi ka tatakas o para may pondo ka doon para habang nangangako ka na aayusin ko naman itong mga products na to. Hindi pa sila nagko-comply sa safety standard ngayon, pero before ko sila i-benta, sisiguruhin ko nagko-comply na sila. And itong mga bond na to nababawi upon kapag chinek na ulit ng agency na, uy, naayos mo na nga, okay, payagan na natin to for distribution. Nababawi din naman yung mga bond na yan, no? In the end. Okay. Okay. Sabi rito, if it appears that any consumer product which may not be admitted o hindi pa papasukin, di ba? Pwede naman daw i-modify so that pwede silang i-accept the concerned safety department, hirap na malaking ngipin, just tuyo, department. The concerned safety department and the commissioner of customs shall jointly promulgate such product, tapos yung product na yun may be released from customs custody. Kasi naayos mo na di ba? All modifications taken by an owner or consignee for the purpose of securing admission of an imported consumer product shall be subject to the supervision of the concerned department. Ayun, naipaliwanag ko na pala ito Imported consumer products not admitted must be exported except that upon application, the Commissioner of Customs may permit the destruction of the product if within a reasonable time the owner or consignee thereof fails to export the same. Pwede siyang ipasira, All expenses in connection with the destruction, okay, and expenses in connection with the storage, cartage, or labor, okay, with respect to any consumer product na hindi pinayagan or refused admission, shall be paid by the owner or consignee, and in default, shall constitute a claim or lien against any future importation made by such owner or consignee. Kaya, pinakamainam kung magiging owner ka or consignee ka, mag-i-import ka ng produkto, bukod sa ang pag-i-import ay laging may buwis. Kahit na personal na gamit mo lang yan, merong kang tax na babayaran dyan. Kahit hindi naman for sale, mag-import ka na ng maayos na product. So magpapahinga lang ako at ako'y magbabalik, no? Babasa pa tayo. Article 16 pa lang tayo, 1 hour na. Okay. Okay, so Article 16, no? Consumer products for export. Okay, the preceding article on safety shall not apply to any consumer product if, letter A, it can be shown that such product is manufactured, sold, or held for sale for export from the Philippines, or that such product was imported for export from the Philippines, or that such product was imported for export, unless such consumer product is in fact distributed in commerce for use in the Philippines, and such consumer product or the packaging thereof bears a stamp or label stating that such consumer product is intended for export and actually exported. Okay. So, hindi ito mag-a-apply yung mga protections na yon kasi for export naman. In-import mo siya to export. Article 17, powers, functions, and duties. Okay. In addition to their powers, functions, and duties under existing laws, the concerned department shall have the following powers and functions and duties. So, ito yung mga department na sinasabi, yung DOH, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Trade and Industry. Letter A, to administer and supervise the implementation of this article and its implementing rules and regulations. Letter B, to undertake researches, develop and establish quality and safety standards for consumer products in coordination with other government and private agencies closely associated with these products. Letter C, to inspect and analyze consumer products for purposes of determining conformity to established quality and safety standards. Letter D, to levy, assess, collect, and retain fees as are necessary to cover the costs of inspection, certification, analysis, and tests of samples of consumer products and materials submitted in compliance with the provisions of this article. Letter E, to investigate the cause of and maintain a record of product-related deaths, illnesses, and injuries for use in researches or studies on the prevention of such product-related deaths, illness, and injuries. And letter F, to accredit independent, competent non-government bodies to assist in monitoring the market for the presence of hazardous or non-certified products and other forms of violations of Article 18. And number 2, other appropriate means to expand the monitoring and enforcement outreach of the department in relation to its manpower, testing, and certification resources at a given time. And letter G, na power ng mga implementing agencies to accredit independent, competent testing laboratories. Okay? Magtungo na tayo dito sa prohibited acts, di ba? Sabi kasi dito, power. Isa sa mga powers ng implementing agencies to monitor the market, no? Against dito sa mga prohibited acts, no? Nasasabihin dito sa Article 18. Okay. It shall be unlawful for any person to, okay, letter A, manufacture for sale, offer for sale, distribute in commerce, or import into the Philippines any consumer product which is not in conformity with an applicable consumer product quality or safety standard promulgated in this act. Bawal yun. Letter B, manufacture for sale, offer for sale, distribute in commerce, or import into the Philippines any consumer product which has been declared as banned consumer product by a rule in this act. Letter C, refuse access to or copying of pertinent records or fail or refuse to permit entry of or inspection by authorized officers or employees of the department. Letter D, fail to comply with an order issued under Article 2 relating to notifications of substantial product hazards and to recall, repair, replacement, or refund or unsafe products. Yan kung yung may mga kunwari, kotse o anumang produkto na may depekto, pinapa-recall ng proper implementing agency. Ayaw mong i-recall. And letter E, failure to comply with the rule prohibiting stockpiling. Di ba? Ito yung mga hoarders, di ba? Ito yung mga nag-hoard. Pwede ko rin sigurong banggitin dito yung nag-hoard ng mga bigas, no? tapos hinintay na magkulang ang supply, tumaas ang presyo, sa kanila ibebenta yung mga sindikato na ganyan. Okay, Article 19, Penalties. Any person who shall violate any provision of Article 18 shall, upon conviction, be subject to a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos, but not more than 10,000 pesos, or imprisonment of not less than 2 months, but not more than 1 year, or both, upon discretion of the court. If the owner is an alien, he shall be deported after service of sentence and payment of fine without further deportation proceedings. Okay. Letter B, in case the offender is a naturalized citizen, kunwari si Andre Blatch. Okay, during my time, ngayon, di ba naturalized citizen natin siya dahil ni-represent niya tayo sa nagdaang mga FIBA competitions, no? In case the offender is a naturalized citizen, he shall, in addition to the penalty prescribed herein, suffer the penalty of cancellation of his naturalization certificate and its registration in the civil register, and immediate deportation after service of sentence and payment of fine. Letter C, any director, officer, or agent of a corporation who shall authorize, order, or perform any of the acts or practices constituting in whole or in part a violation of Article 18, and who has knowledge or notice of non-compliance received by the corporation from the concerned department, shall be subject to penalties to which the corporation may be subject. In case a violation is committed by or in interest of a foreign juridical person duly licensed to engage in business in the Philippines, such license to engage in Philippines in the shall license to engage business in the Philippines shall be immediately revoked. O, di ba, ang isang foreign corporation ay nagsesecure ng license and authority to engage business in the Philippines. So, kung itong paglabag nila sa mga nabanggit natin ay para sa kapakinabangan nitong foreign corporation na to, agad-agad nating i-revoke, okay, ang kanilang license to engage in business with us. Okay. Chapter 2, Food, Drugs, Cosmetics, and Devices. Article 20, Declaration of Policy. The state shall ensure safe and good quality of food, drugs, cosmetics, and devices, and regulate their production, sale, distribution, and advertisement to protect the health of the consumer. Article 21, Implementing Agency. Okay, binanggit niya na naman ito. In the implementation of the foregoing policy, the state, through the DOH, hereby referred as the department, shall, in accordance with the provisions of this act, letter A, establish standards and quality measures for food, drugs, devices, and cosmetics. Okay, trabaho yan ng Department of Health. Letter B, adopt measures to ensure pure and safe supply of foods, cosmetics, and safe, efficacious, and good quality of drugs and devices in the country. Letter D, adopt measures to ensure pure and safe supply of foods and cosmetics and safe, efficacious, and good quality of drugs and devices in the country. Letter C, adopt measures to ensure the rational use of drugs and devices, such as, but not limited to, banning, recalling, or withdrawing from the market drugs and devices which are unregistered, safe, inefficacious, or of doubtful therapeutic value, the adoption of an official national drug formulary, and the use of generic names in the labeling of drugs. And letter D, strengthen the Bureau of Food and Drugs. Kasi ang Bureau of Food and Drugs is a bureau under the Department of Health. Similarly, ang National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, under ng Department of Justice naman. Parang ganun siya. Okay, Article 22. Okay, whenever in the judgment of the department, such action will promote honesty and fair dealing in the interest of consumers, it shall promulgate rules and regulations fixing and establishing a reasonable definition and standard of identity, a reasonable standard of quality, and a reasonable standard of fill of containers for food, drugs, cosmetics, or devices. Okay. O, may mahaba na naman itong Article 23. Adulterated food, yan. Adulterated daw yung pagkain kapag letter A, if it bears or contains any poisonous or deleterious substance, okay, which may be injurious to health. If it bears, ikalawa, if it bears or contains any added poisonous or deleterious substance, okay. Maliban na lang, syempre, dito sa pesticide. Talagang pesticide yun, hindi naman pang pagkain yun eh. Number 3, if it consists in whole or in part of any filthy, putrid, or decomposed substance, or if it is otherwise unfit for food. Number 4, if it has been prepared, packed, or held under unsanitary conditions, no? Number 5, if it is in whole or part the product of a deceased animal. O di ba yung tinatawag nating double dead, no? Which has died other than by slaughter. Hindi siya namatay sa katay. Namatay na siya, nagkasakit, tapos binotcha mo pa. Letter 6, if its container is composed in whole or in part of any poisonous or deleterious substance, no? Letter 7, if it has passed its expiry date, no? Ano ba? Letter A yon, okay. Adulterated rin daw yung food kapag, saan na tayo? If any value constituent has been in whole or in part omitted or abstracted therefrom, and the same has not been substituted by any healthful equivalent, no? May tinanggal siya na key component at di niya naman ito napalitan ng healthful equivalent. If any substance not a valuable constituent has been added or substituted in part thereof. If damage or inferiority has been concealed in any manner. If any substance has been added thereto or packed therewith so as to increase its bulk. Pinarami lang pero in reality, na-reduce naman yung kanyang quality or strength. Okay? If it is or bears or contains a color additive which is unsafe, sabi. If it is confectionery and it bears or contains any alcohol or non-nutritive article or substance except harmless coloring, harmless flavoring, yan. Hindi naman kasama yung mga harmless na gano'n. If it is margarine or butter and any of the raw materials used therein consists in whole or in part of any filthy, putrid, or decomposed substance, or such margarine or butter is otherwise unfit for food. Letter F, if it has not been prepared in accordance with current acceptable manufacturing practice established by the department through regulations. Article 24, Regulation of Unprocessed Food. Ito, yung nabanggit ko na to kanina, yung local governments. Sabi rito, the provincial, municipal, and city governments shall regulate the preparation and sale of meat, fresh fruits, poultry, milk, fish, vegetables, and other foodstuff for public consumption pursuant to the local government code. Ito yung dahilan, nakalagay siya sa batas and pursuant to the local government code, kung kaya as of this moment, di ba, napapanood natin sila Mayor Isko Moreno na nanguhuli sila ng mga nagbebenta ng botcha, di ba, mga double dead na mga meat kasi it is not safe for public consumption. Alinsunod sa batas yun, hindi pasipasikat lang yun. Alinsunod yun dito sa Consumer Act and sa Local Government Code. Article 25, Tolerance for poisonous ingredients in food. Any poisonous or deleterious substance added to any food shall be deemed to be unsafe, except when such substance is required or cannot be avoided in its production or cannot be avoided by good manufacturing process. Okay. Meron din naman mga tinotolerate. Okay. Not just that, alam mo yan, makakasama siya pero hindi mo siya maiiwasan to produce a certain food. And yung produce naman is considered as safe naman. Article 26, Unsafe Food Additives, Exceptions for Conformity with Regulation. Okay. Ito na nga rin yun. A food additive daw with respect to any particular use or intended use shall be deemed unsafe unless, sabi niya, letter A, it and its use or intended use conforms to the terms of an exemption for being solely intended for investigational use by qualified experts, o di naman kaya it and its use or intended use is in conformity or alinsunod with the regulation issued by the department prescribing the conditions under which such additives may be safely used. Article 27, Petition for Regulation of Food Additive. Any person with respect to any intended use of a food additive file with the department a petition proposing the issuance of a regulation prescribing the conditions under which such additives may be safely used. Okay. The department, ibig niya sabihin dito, DOH, may at any time upon its own initiative issue a regulation prescribing with respect to any particular food additive the conditions under which such additive may be safely used and the reasons thereof and cause the publication of the same. Article 28, Effectivity of Regulations. The regulations promulgated under the preceding articles shall take effect 15 days after its publication in a newspaper of general circulation. Pero sabi nga ulit, but the DOH may stay such effectivity if, after issuance of such order, a hearing is sought by any person adversely affected by such order. Okay, magtungo na tayo sa drugs and devices. Okay, Article 29, Adulterated Drugs and Devices. Okay, a drug or device, di ba, dinefine na natin to, shall be deemed to be adulterated, letter A, if it contains in whole or in part of any filthy, putrid, or decomposed substance which may affect its safety, efficacy, or good quality, sabi niya. Letter B, if it purports to be or is represented as a drug, the name of which is recognized in an official compendium, and its strength differs from, or its safety, efficacy, quality, or purity falls below the standards set forth in such compendium, except that whenever tests or methods of essay are prescribed are, in the judgment of the DOH, insufficient for the making of such determination. O basta bumagsak siya, di ba? Doon sa kanyang compendium o doon sa kanyang cover, no? Parang effective siyang gamot, pero in reality nag-fall naman siya doon sa standards, no? Letter C, if it is not subject to the provisions of paragraph B and its strength differs from, or its efficacy, quality, or purity falls below that which it purports or it's represented to possess. Yan, sabi niya, mapapagalingin ka niya ng ganito, pero hindi naman. Okay. Letter D, if a drug or device and any substance has been mixed or packed therewith, or any substance has been substituted wholly or in part thereof, so as to reduce its safety, efficacy, quality, strength, and purity. And letter E, if the methods used in, or the facilities or controls used for its manufacture or holding do not conform to, or are not operated or administered in conformity with current good manufacturing practice to assure that such drug meets the requirements of this act, has the safety, quality, and efficacy, and has the identity and strength, and meets the quality and purity characteristics which it purports or is represented to possess. Okay, Article 30, Exemption in cases of drugs and devices. Okay, mahaba na naman to. Sabi rito, the Department of Health is hereby directed to promulgate regulations exempting from any labeling or packaging requirement, di ba? Of this act, drugs and devices which are in accordance with the practice of the trade to be processed, labeled, or repacked in substantial quantities at established other than those were originally processed or packed. Okay, meron mga exceptions, ano? Number 1, drugs intended for use by man, which, ito yung habit forming, dahil toxicity sila or other potentiality for harmful effect, di ba? New drugs whose applications are limited to investigational use. Okay. It shall only be dispensed upon written prescription of a practitioner licensed by law to administer. oral prescription ng isang licensed practitioner or pharmacist, or by refilling any such written or oral prescription kung ito ay authorized by the prescribed practitioner, no? Any other drug dispensed by filling or refilling a written prescription of a practitioner licensed by law, no, shall be exempt from the requirements ng packing, no? Ano pang sabi niya? Ito, the department may by regulation remove drugs subject to Article 89D and Article 31 from the requirements of sub-Article B and 1 of this article. Nasa sa DOH na yon, as they may deem necessary for the protection of public health. A drug which is subject to sub-Article B1 of this article shall be deemed to be mislabeled if any time prior to dispensing its label fails to bear the statement caution should not be dispensed without prescription. Okay. Kasi hindi na nga maayos yung na-exempt ka na nga doon sa labeling requirements eh. Pero kailangan nakalagay yung should not be dispensed without prescription. Kailangan mo ng prescription para bilhin itong gamot na ito. Okay, isa pang mahaba, Article 31, Licensing and Registration. Sabi rito, no person shall manufacture, sell, offer for sale, import, export, distribute, or transfer any drug or device unless an application filed pursuant to sub-article B hereof is effective with respect to such drug or device. Okay. Article 32, dangerous drugs. No? The importation, distribution, manufacture, production, compounding, prescription, dispensing, and sale of, and other lawful acts, okay, in connection with dangerous drugs of such kind and quantity as may be deemed necessary according to the medical and research needs of the country and the determination of the quantities to be imported, manufactured, and held in stock at any given time by an authorized importer, manufacturer, or distributor of dangerous drugs shall be under the jurisdiction and authority of the Dangerous Drugs Board as provided for by existing laws and regulations. Okay. Problema nga lamang, maraming dangerous drugs na alam na natin na abuso. Di ba? Kasi kung magtatanong kayo, bakit kailangan mag-produce o bakit kailangan meron tayong dangerous drugs dito sa bansa? Kasi kailangan siya for compounding, kailangan siya for necessary research, etc., etc., hindi para abusuhin, no? Ang marijuana naman, in reality, ginagamit na gamot yan nung araw pa, inabuso lang kaya ipinagbawal. Diba? Yung cough syrup nga, pangtanggal ng ubo. Laklakin mo ba naman? Inabuso mo rin, di ba? Kasi lumagpas ka dun sa required na dosage eh. So lahat ng pag-aabuso, nagiging dangerous drugs, di ba? Nagkakatoyo ka na sa utak. Imbis na makagaling, nakakasira siya ng ulo mo. Article 33, banned or restricted drugs. Banned or severely restricted drugs for health and safety reasons in their country of origin shall be banned and confiscated, or its uses severely restricted, whichever is appropriate by the department. The DOH shall monitor the presence in the market of such drugs and cause the maintenance and regular publications of an updated consolidated list thereof. Okay. Tungo na tayo sa certification of drugs containing antibiotics. Ito. Diba? Diba, ang antibiotic, sinasabi, kailangan mayroon daw reseta ng doktor. Article 34. The department shall, by regulations provided for the certification of batches of drugs composed wholly or partially of any kind of antibiotic by man containing any quantity of any chemical substance which is produced by a microorganism and which has the capacity to inhibit or destroy microorganisms in dilute solution. Okay. Kaya kailangan i-regulate siya by batch, sabi. Whenever in the judgment of the department, the requirements of this article and of Article 89J with respect to any drug or class drugs are not necessary, okay, para sa public safety, okay, pwedeng mag-exempt ang DOH sa mga drug or class of drugs na nangangailangan sa requirement na yon sa mga na parang kumbaga na mag-exempt sila from further requirements na nakasaad dito sa batas. Letter C, the department shall promulgate regulations exempting from any requirement of this article and of Article 89. Drugs which are to be stored, processed, labeled, or repacked at establishments other than those were manufactured or conditioned that such drugs comply with all such requirements upon removal from such establishments, at saka drugs which conform to applicable standards of identity, strength, quality, and purity prescribed by these regulations and are intended for use in manufacturing other drugs. At ikatatlo, drugs which are intended for investigational use by experts qualified by scientific training and experience to investigate the safety and efficacy of drugs. So, nakasaad sa batas ng DOH ay gagawa ng regulasyon na exempt yung mga nabanggit natin sa mga requirements of this article and of Article 89J. Tungo na tayo sa cosmetics. Article 35, Adulterated Cosmetics. A cosmetic shall be deemed to be adulterated, sabi niya, if it bears or contains any poisonous or deleterious substance which may render it injurious to users under the condition of use prescribed in the labeling thereof. Yan. Letter B, if it consists in whole or in part of any filthy, putrid, or decomposed substance. Yan. Letter C, if it has been prepared, packed, or held under unsanitary conditions. Letter D, if its container is composed in whole or in part of any poisonous or deleterious substance, injurious na naman siya sa health. Letter E, if it is not a hair dye and it bears or contains color additive other than which is permissible. And letter F, if any of its substances has been mixed or packed therewith so as to reduce its quality or strength, or substituted wholly or in parts thereof. Sila ay, ito yung mga adulterated cosmetics. Okay, article daw, no? Officers and employees, okay, ng presenting appropriate credentials, di ba? O yung mga identification nila, pipresenta nila sa owner, operator, or agent in charge, shall be authorized to enter at reasonable hours factory, warehouse, or establishment, sabi. To inspect in a reasonable manner such factory, warehouse, establishment, vehicle, o kahit na ano pa yan. Letter B, if the officer or employee making any such inspection of a factory, warehouse, or other establishment has obtained any sample, di ba? Upon completion of the inspection and prior to leaving the premises, he shall give to the owner, operator, or agent a receipt describing the samples obtained. And letter C, whenever in the course of any such inspection of a factory, di ba? The officer or employee making the inspection obtains a sample of such food and an analysis made of such sample for the purposes of ascertaining. Yung resulta nun ng analysis shall be furnished promptly to the owner, operator, or agent in charge. Okay. Powers naman ito ng gobyerno na pasukin ng mga for inspection ng mga factories, ganyan, etc. for inspection, 'di ba? At kung ano man makuha mo doon, at yung resulta ng test doon sa makukuha mo doon, kailangan ipagbigay alam mo sa owner o doon sa in charge doon. Okay, nandito na tayo sa Article 37, provisional of any class of food, cosmetics, drugs, or devices makakasama sa kalusugan, di ba? It shall promulgate regulations providing for the issuance, suspension, and revocation of provisional sale or transfer of such classes of food, cosmetics, drugs, or devices to manufacturers, processors, or packers of the same in such locality to which pag nakakita sa iyo ang department, pwede na nilang i-cause ang revocation at ang issuance ng suspension mo, o di naman kaya i-revoke ang iyong permit. Article 38, publicity and publication. The department caused to be disseminated information, ipapakalat yan regarding food, drugs, devices, cosmetics, and situations involving, in the opinion of the department, imminent danger to health or gross deception to the consumer. Nothing in this article shall be construed to prohibit the department from collecting, reporting, and illustrating the results of its investigations. The department shall publish a drug reference manual and drug bulletin to serve as reference by manufacturers, distributors, physicians, consumers, and such other groups as may be deemed necessary. The department is hereby authorized to sell the drug reference manual at cost. Ay magtungo na tayo sa Article 39 naman, no? Article 39, Administrative Sanctions, no? In addition to the administrative sanctions provided for under Letters of Instruction number 1223, the department is hereby authorized to impose after notice and hearing administrative fines na hindi bababa or not less than 1,000 pesos nor more than 5,000 pesos for any violation of this act. Okay. Magbe-break lamang tayo at babalikan natin ang prohibited acts and penalties. Okay. Muling nagbabalik. Okay. Nandito pa rin tayo sa Consumer Act, no? Isang batas na nasa ilalim pa rin ng Mercantile Law. So, basahin natin yung Prohibited Acts and Penalties, Article 40 of the Consumer Act. The following acts and the causing thereof are hereby prohibited. Letter A. The manufacture, importation, exportation, sale, offering for sale, distribution, or transfer of any food, drug, device, or cosmetic that is adulterated or mislabeled. Letter B. The adulteration or misbranding of any food, drug, device, or cosmetic. Letter C. The refusal to permit entry or inspection as authorized by Article 36 to allow samples to be collected. Letter D. The giving of a guarantee or undertaking referred to in Article 41B hereof, which guarantee of or undertaking is false, except by a person who relied upon a guarantee or undertaking to the same effect, signed by and containing the name and address of the person residing in the Philippines from whom he received in good faith the food, drug, device, or cosmetic, or the giving of a guarantee or undertaking referred to in Article 41B, which guarantee or undertaking is false. Letter E. Forging, counterfeiting, simulating, or falsely representing or without proper authority using any mark, stamp, tag, label, or other identification device authorized or required by regulations promulgated under the provisions of this Act. Letter F. The using by any person to his own advantage or revealing other than to the department or to the courts when relevant in any judicial proceeding under this Act, any information concerning any method or process which, as a trade secret, is entitled to protection. Letter G. The alteration, mutilation, destruction, obliteration, or removal of the whole or any part of the labeling of or the doing of any other act with respect to a food, drug, device, or cosmetic if such act is done while such product is held for sale, whether or not the first sale, and results in such product being adulterated or mislabeled. Letter H. The use on the labeling of any drug or in any advertising relating to such drug of any representation or suggestion that an application with respect to such drug is effective under Article 31 hereof, or that such drug complies with the provisions of such articles. Letter I. The use in labeling, advertising, or other sales promotion of any reference to any report or analysis furnished in compliance with Section 19 of E0175 Series of 1987. Letter J. The manufacture, importation, exportation, sale, offering for sale, distribution, or transfer of any drug or device which is not registered with the department pursuant to this Act. Letter K. The manufacture, importation, exportation, sale, offering for sale, distribution, or transfer of any drug or device by any person without the license from the department required in this Act. And letter L. The sale or offering for sale of any drug or device beyond its expiration or expiry date. And letter M. The release for sale or distribution of a batch of drugs without batch certification when required under Article 34 hereof. So, yun ang mga prohibited acts, no? Mga ipinagbabawal na gawain. Penalties. Sa Article 41, any person who violates any of the provisions of Article 40 shall, upon conviction, be subject to imprisonment of not less than 1 year but not more than 5 years, or a fine of not less than 5,000 pesos but not more than 10,000 pesos, or both as may be deemed by the courts. Should the offense be committed by a juridical person, the chairman of the board of directors, the president, general manager, or the partners, and or the persons directly responsible, therefore shall be penalized. Okay? Sabi pa rito, no person shall be subject to the penalties, okay, for having sold, offered for sale, or transferred any product and delivered it if such delivery was made in good faith, sabi niya. Unless he refuses to furnish on request of the department the name and address of the persons from whom he purchased or received such product and copies of all documents kung meron man. Okay, kung good faith siya, nagdi-deliver lang naman siya. Wala siyang kamuwang-muwang, do. Kailangan niyang sabihin o kung sino may-ari nun at kailangan niyang i-furnish yung department ng copies, no? O kaya naman yung mga kung sakali mang he established the guarantee or undertaking signed by and containing the name and address of the person residing in the Philippines from who he received in good faith the product. Yun. In good faith, wala naman siyang intensyong manakit o manloko, di ba? O dili naman where the violation exists because the product is adulterated by reason of containing a color other than the permissible one under regulations promulgated by the department in this act kung yung taong yun establishes a guarantee. Okay? Okay, yun. O magtungo naman tayo sa Chapter 3, Hazardous Substance, no? Article 42, the state shall adopt measures designed to protect the consumer against substances other than food, drugs, cosmetics, and devices that are hazardous to his health and safety. Article 43, Implementing Agency, syempre DOH pa rin. Article 44, the department shall promulgate the rules and regulations governing the implementation of this article. So may IRR yung mga bawat article dito kung ipinag-uutos nitong batas na ito na yung isang ahensya o gumawa ka nga ng implementing rules para dito. Ayon. Article 45, sabi, imports, regulations on hazardous substance. So basahin natin, the Commissioner of Customs daw shall deliver to the DOH upon its request samples of hazardous substance being imported or offered for import to the Philippines, no? Tapos pending the decision on the admissibility of a hazardous substance, no, the Commissioner of Customs may authorize delivery ng hazardous substance na to the owner or consignee upon execution by him of a good and sufficient bond, sapat na halaga, providing for the payment of such liquidated damages in the event of default. Itong bond po, ulitin natin na hindi po ito suhol, no? This is a bond, parang collateral na, o sige, just in case na nag-incur ka ng damage or just in case hindi talaga dapat payagan pumasok sa bansang ito yung inimport namin ng mga hazardous substances, this will cover for the damages, di ba? Hindi sila makakatakas, kumbaga. Ano naman yung prohibited acts and penalties, Article 46, pagdating sa mga hazardous substances, no? Sabi, bawal daw to introduce or deliver for introduction into commerce any mislabeled hazardous substance. Letter B, bawal din to alter, mutilate, destroy, obliterate, or remove, sabi, the whole or any part of the label of a mislabeled hazardous substance. Letter C, bawal din daw to receive in commerce any mislabeled hazardous substance or banned substance. Letter D, bawal din to give the guarantee or undertaking referred in paragraph B of Article 93 and paragraph B of Article 45 if such guarantee or undertaking is false, sabi. Letter E, bawal din to introduce or deliver for introduction into commerce or otherwise in commerce and subsequently deliver or preferred at cost or otherwise or a hazardous substance in a refused food, drug, cosmetic, or device container. Sabi, bawal daw yun to introduce or deliver. Article 47, ano naman ang penalties nito? Any person who violates any provisions of Article 46 shall, upon conviction, be subject to a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos or an imprisonment of not less than 6 months, but not more than 5 years or both upon the discretion of the court. Hindi ko lang sure to kung special law ba ay sa RTC ba ito? Parang sa penalty niya, pang MTC ang penalty. Okay. Letter B, no person shall be subject to the penalty, sabi niya, kapag ayun na naman, in good faith naman siya, okay, nung pinurchase niya, sumunod naman siya sa mga regulasyon ng DOH na mag-furnish, ibigay nila yung kopya na kinakailangan ng mga DOH. o kaya nag-establish naman sila ng tunay na guarantee na hindi false. Okay, at yung hazardous substance naman na in-import ay hindi naman para sa mga prohibited acts na ayon dito sa batas na ito. Okay, magtungo na tayo sa Title 3, Protection Against Deceptive, Unfair, and Unconscionable Sales, Acts, or Practices. Okay, sabi sa Article 48, the state shall promote and encourage fair, honest, and equitable relations among parties in consumer transactions and protect the consumer against deceptive, unfair, and unconscionable sales acts or practices. Tungo tayo sa Article 49, implementing agency naman dito ay ang DOTI, Department of Trade and Industry. Siya ang tinutukoy na department dito naman sa pinag-uusapan natin ito. Okay. Sabi rito sa Article 50, okay, a deceptive act daw or practice by a seller or supplier in connection with a consumer transaction violates this act, whether it occurs before, during, or after the transaction. Yun ang sabi niya. Without limiting of the scope of the above paragraph, the act or practice of a seller or supplier is deceptive kapag letter A consumer product or service has the sponsorship, approval, performance, characteristics, ingredients, accessories, uses, or benefits na wala naman talaga siya. Letter B, a consumer product or service is of a particular standard quality when in fact it is not. Sinabi niyan, standard siya pero hindi naman. Letter C, a consumer product is new, original, or unused when in fact it was just a deteriorated, altered, reconditioned, reclaimed, or second-hand state. Pero kiniklaim niya na siya ay bagong consumer product. Letter D, a consumer product or service is available to the consumer for a reason that is different from the fact. Letter E, a consumer product or service has been supplied in accordance with the previous representation when in fact it is not. Okay, misrepresentation, no? Okay, consumer product or service can be supplied in quantity greater than the supplier intends. Okay. A service or repair of a consumer product is needed when in fact it is not, sabi. Specific price advantage of a consumer product exists when in fact it is not. Yan. Puro misrepresentation. The sales or practices involves or does not involve a warranty. Wala silang warranty, no? Sinasabi nila meron pero wala naman. Letter J, the seller or supplier has a sponsorship, approval, or affiliation na wala naman. Wala naman siyang ganon. Wala naman siyang sponsorship, approval, or affiliation. Article 51, Deceptive Sales Act or Practices by Regulation. The department daw, in this case, DOTR, ang Department of Trade and Industry ang sinasabi, shall, after due notice and hearing, promulgate regulations declaring as deceptive any sales act, practice, or technique which is a misrepresentation of facts other than these enumerated in Article 50. Basta misrepresentation, ano na yan, prohibited, act na yan kagad. Pwedeng sabihin ng DOTI na that is a prohibited act. Article 52, Unfair or Unconscionable Sales Act or Practice. Ano ba ito? Ito ay ginagawa ng seller or supplier in connection with a consumer transaction na nagva-violate sa chapter na ito whether it occurs before, during, or after the consumer transaction, sabi niya. In determining whether an act or practice is unfair and unconscionable, the following circumstances shall be considered. Okay, letter A, that the producer, manufacturer, distributor, supplier, or seller took advantage of the inability of the consumer to reasonably protect his interest. Letter B, that when the consumer transaction was entered into, the price grossly exceeded the price at which similar products or services were readily obtainable. Overpriced ka pa. Letter C, that when the consumer transaction was entered into, the consumer was unable to receive a substantial benefit from the subject of the transaction. Letter D, that when the consumer was entered into, the seller or supplier was aware that there was no reasonable probability or payment of the obligation in full by the consumer. And letter E, that the transaction that the seller or supplier induced the consumer, parang nilinlang, di ba, was excessively one-sided in favor of the seller or supplier. Example yan, yung mga pyramid scam o kaya naman yung mga pwede ka raw manalo ng kotse, bibigyan ka pang payong tapos pipilitin kunin yung credit card number mo. nangyari sa SM yan, may mga ganyan. Article 53, chain distribution plans or pyramid sales schemes. Chain distribution plans or pyramid sales schemes shall not be deployed in the sale of consumer products. Article 54, home solicitation sales. No business entity shall conduct any home solicitation sale of any consumer product or service without first obtaining a permit from the Department of Trade and Industry. Article 55, kailan lamang ginagawa yung home solicitation sales? Sabi, kung meron kang permit from DOTI, the solicitation may be conducted only between the hours of 9 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening of each working day. Article 56, home solicitation sales. Sinong gumagawa? Shall only be conducted by a person who has proper identification and authority from his principals to make such solicitations. Article 57, receipts for home solicitation sales. Sales generated from home solicitation sales shall be properly receipted as per existing laws, rules, and regulations on sale transactions. Dapat laging may resibo. Article 58, prohibited representations. A home solicitation sale shall not represent that A, the buyer has been specially selected, B, the survey, test, or research is being conducted, or letter C, the seller is making a special offer for a few persons only for a limited period of time. Bawal sabihin yun na, uy, pinili ka lang namin katukin. Uy, may ginagawa kaming survey. And letter C, uy, may special offer kami para sa inyo lamang. Iilan lang kayo. Bawal yun, sabi sa prohibited representations sa home solicitation. Article 59, referral sales. Referral selling plans shall not be used in the sale of consumer products unless the seller executes in favor of the buyer a written undertaking that will grant a specified compensation or other benefit to said buyer in return for each and every transaction consummated by said seller with the persons referred by said buyer, or for subsequent sales that said buyers has helped the seller enter into. Article 60, penalties. Any person, sabi niya, who shall violate the provisions of Title 3 and Chapter 1 shall, upon conviction, be subject to a fine of not less than 5,000 pesos, but not more than 10,000 pesos, or imprisonment of not less than 5 months, but not more than 1 year, or both, upon discretion of the court. In addition to the penalty, the court may grant an injunction or restraining the conduct constituting the contravention of the provisions of Articles 50 and 51. Tapos mag-award pa sila ng damages and such other orders as it thinks fit to redress injury to the person caused by such conduct. Okay? Madami-dami pa. Okay, sandali. Buksan ko lang yung fan. Madami-dami pa, pero nakakalahatian na natin to. Yung Consumer Act. Regulation of practices relative to weights and measure. Ito naman. Sino naman ang implementing agency dito? Article 61, the provincial, city, or municipal treasurers daw shall strictly enforce the provisions of this chapter. Okay? And its implementing rules and regulations, sabi. Okay. Pero with respect naman to the metric system, it shall be enforced by the Department of Trade and Industry. Article 62, sealing and testing of instruments of weights and measure. So all instruments for determining weights and measures in all consumer and consumer-related transactions shall be tested, calibrated, and sealed every 6 months by the official sealer, who shall be the provincial or city or municipal treasurer or his authorized representative upon payment of fees required under existing law. Provided that all instruments of weights and measures shall continuously be inspected for compliance with the provisions of this chapter. Article 63, use of metric system. The system of weights and measures to be used for all products, commodities, materials, utilities, services, sabi niya again, shall be in accordance with existing laws and their implementing rules and regulations. The Department of Trade and Industry shall also adopt standard measurement for garments, shoes, and other similar consumer products. Kaya makikita mo lagi sa mga balita, lalo na pag magpapasko, magkakaroon ng shopping, o di naman kaya yung back to school sale, ganyan. Kino-cover ng mga mainstream media minsan kung ano yung opinion ng DOTR regarding certain products, 'di ba? Pinagbibigay din nila sa publiko, yung pinagbibigay alam nila sa publiko yung tamang metriko, 'di ba kasi DOTR 'yan eh. Pero yung mga municipal treasurer daw ang magi-implement talaga pagdating sa weight and measures, maliban na lamang dun sa paggamit ng metric system kasi DOTI 'yan. Ano naman yung prohibited acts, mga pinagbabawal? Sabi rito sa Article 64, the following acts relating to weights and measures are prohibited, sabi. Letter A, for any person other than the official sealer or his duly authorized representative to place or attach an official tag, seal, sticker, mark, stamp, brand, or other characteristic sign used to indicate that such instrument or weight and measure has officially been tested, calibrated, sealed, or inspected. Dapat yung official sealer lang. Letter B, for any person to imitate seal, sticker, mark, stamp, brand, ayan, pandaraya yan. Letter C, for any person other than the official sealer or his authorized representative, no, to alter in any way the certificate or receipt. Bawal yan. Letter D, for any person to make or knowingly sell or use any false or counterfeit seal, sticker, brand, stamp. Bawal yan. Kahit ano pa yan, basta counterfeit. Letter E, for any person other than the official sealer or his duly authorized representative to alter the written or printed figures, letters, symbols, seal, etc. Letter F, for any person to use or reuse any restored, altered, expired, damaged, yung mga stamp na luma, bawal. Letter G, for any person engaged in buying and selling of consumer products or of furnishing services, the value of which is estimated by weight or measure, nandadaya ka sa measurement. Letter H, for any person to fraudulently alter any scale, balance, yan, naglagay ka ng pabigat. Letter I, for any person to knowingly use any false scale, balance, weight, or measure. Letter J, for any person to fraudulently give short weight, yan, di ba? Hindi naman yun ang tunay na weight. Letter K, for any person assuming to determine truly the weight or measure of any article. Nag-assume ka lang, wala ka namang authority. And letter L, for any person to procure the commission of any such offense above mentioned by another. Sabi sa Article 65, any penalties, ayun na naman. Any person who shall violate the provisions of paragraphs 8 to F, yung binasa natin, shall be subject to a fine of not less than 200 pesos but not more than 1,000 pesos, or pwede rin siya makulong not more than 1 year, o di ba, by imprisonment of na hindi hihigit sa 1 taon, o pwede siya magbayad ng fine and kulong upon discretion of the court. Letter B, any person who shall violate naman the provisions of paragraph G of Article 64 for the first time shall be subject to a fine of not less than 500 pesos or by imprisonment of not less than 1 month but not more than 5 years, or both, upon the discretion of the court. And letter C, the owner, possessor, or user of instrument of weights and measure enumerated in paragraphs H to K of Article 64 shall, upon conviction, be subject to a fine of not less than 300 pesos or imprisonment na hindi higit sa 1 year, or both, upon discretion of the court. Nako, so lalo na dito yung kulong, yun ang mahirap eh. Kung nakita ng korte na ikaw ay talagang mapanloko ka, nako. So anyway, doon muna tayo nagtatapos sa pagbabasa natin ng Consumer Act, no? Nagtapos tayo sa Article 65. Kailangan ko na munang maglinis, magtanim, magdilig. Pray muna tayo. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Panginoon, maraming salamat at binibigyan mo kami ng oras, ng lakas, ng talino, ng boses, na magbasa ng batas, at ipakalat ito sa mga kapatid natin, mga kababayan natin, para sa kanilang pagsunod. Hindi ba? So samahan niyo ulit ako next time sa ating pagbabasa at subukan natin itong ipaliwanag at unawain in layman's term. Bye-bye.